So I've been having a good time talking about invincible what ifs, or just what ifs involving the invincible universe. And one of those what ifs that I've thought about, and the main reason why I've thought about it, is that scene with Omni Man with Debbie watching Mark actually play baseball. And initially he's angry, he's mad, his arms are folded, and he's upset. Right? He low key looks like a kid who's like pouting. And he just looks mad, like he doesn't want to be there. And it's like that Viltrumite side is kind of showing that he believes that there's no point in doing this. This is meaningless. Like, what they're doing right now, playing this silly game, is meaningless. But then soon, when Mark hits the ball, right? And when Mark lands that nice hit and he starts running the bases, you could see the face and the reaction of Debbie and Omni-Man change so much. You can see them change entirely. Well, less Debbie, obviously. Debbie didn't have to change. But obviously Nolan has his issues to deal with, or if what we look at as issues, right? And, we know that Nolan is sitting there. Initially, he's upset. He doesn't want to do this. But then soon, he's smiling. He's cheering. He's happy. He's cheering his son on as he runs the bases and eventually scores. Eventually runs the bases all the way and gets to home plate. And then obviously, he jumps into his own father's arms. And you can see that there's a bit of that look of pride on the face of Nolan. And that is what made me think of this idea. What would have happened if Omni-Man stopped his mission earlier? What if he decided that after this moment, after multiple years of raising Mark, after multiple years being around Debbie, that doing what he's doing was wrong? Actually so wrong that he eventually came to the conclusion before he even actually ended the Guardians of the Globe. What would have happened if that was the case? Now, for starters, we would have Nolan abandon his mission, obviously, before killing the Guardians. And those were Earth's top heroes, and they would still be alive. The issue, with Omni-Man doing what he did initially, was those were pretty powerful heroes we're talking about, right? Now, were they on the same level of Omni-Man? Well, no, obviously not. Omni-Man literally beat them in a 1v7. Now, I did sit here and I talked about how I honestly thought that the Guardians of the Globe should have won in a technicality sense, because we're talking about not only a 7 versus 1, but we're talking about a group of people that have various different abilities that could eventually and help them during a fight against someone as powerful as Omni-Man. Now, I know in the comics, he really just beats the absolute heck out of them and destroys them, but there is a version of events that happens as well that they actually somehow defeat him. Now, take that with a grain of salt, right? With a pretty heavy grain of salt. But still, my point still stands. If you have these kind of heroes still alive, they're going to be very helpful in every single horrible thing that is going to happen. We could talk about for days how bad things are eventually going to get, but at the same time, they would be able to help out quite a bit, to help stop a lot of the horrible things to actually ensue. The Guardians of the Globe, themselves, were pretty important in terms of actually, defending Earth in the first place. And if they were just alive, if they still were alive, and, they didn't get absolutely X-nayed by, Omni-Man, there's a good chance that they are actually helpful in this regard, right? We had Martian Man, Green Ghost, we had Red Rush, War Woman. We had some very powerful heroes here. And my big thing is, I talk about this all the time, Red Rush was no joke, right? At all. And that includes people like Green Ghost was no joke either. These were pretty damn powerful heroes that we just, wiped off the face of the Invincible universe because Omni-Man was trying to complete his mission. So actually having these people still alive would help with future battles. Now, that's not the only thing that could potentially change. A lot of the relationships with Mark, Debbie, and various other people would change as well, because obviously he would be a lot less violent and deceptive in a lot of what's going to happen, and Nolan could actually be a true father and husband like he really wanted to be at the end of it all. And Mark obviously wouldn't be traumatized, and Debbie wouldn't either, basically having the whole world shattered around you on this betrayal. He would eventually just admit what's happening. Maybe he would tell his family first, tell them like, look, this is what the plan was for my species. This is what they wanted me to do. I don't want to do this anymore, but we need to come up with a plan to make it seem as if I'm either still doing it or kind of prepare for an eventual arrival of various Viltrumites. And this would lead them eventually to Cecil. Now, is Cecil, well, an amazing person? No. But is he actually trying to protect the world that we all live in? To an extent, yes. Has he done some very stupid things? Of course. That is just kind of the Cecil way. But I honestly could see Omni-Man benefiting a lot of different characters in this regard. Now, obviously, Mark would be probably a beneficial aspect of this more than anybody else, because Mark's hero training would genuinely be healthy for like actually getting stronger. We saw when Nolan told Mark, hey, you gotta fight with the act of wanting to kill. Like, you have to understand that these people, they want to end you, Mark. They want to take you out. They want to take you away from this place forever. That is what they're trying to do. So he basically got Mark to lock in and fight on a different playing field. And this is something he could help Mark do, help Mark train with, help Mark get better at fighting, sparring, and everything on a kind of shorter period of time, because there's a good chance Omni-Man would have just never left. Now, will he eventually leave? Possibly, right? There's a chance where Omni-Man decides to leave to a different planet, maybe actually set up kind of a boomy kind of trap, you know, like a trap for the Viltrumites, where they know that Omni-Man, quote unquote, forfeited his mission and went to Thraxa, which I believe is called, where the Thraxans are, obviously, right? And he would go there, and maybe they could set up a trap for the Viltrumites. When the Viltrumites arrive, they have various heroes prepared for a strike to take out multiple of them at once, and blah, blah, blah. Maybe that is something they actually decide to do. But there's a good chance that instead, he just train Mark solely to be the protector of Earth, help mentor him even better than he ever has in the first place. And there's a good chance that Mark and Omni-Man together, training together, working together, and just trying to get stronger and more prepared together might help more than you could possibly imagine, especially help Mark. And that's the big thing. It would help Mark grow, well, without having emotional baggage. Like, yes, he would have some emotional baggage, but a lot less than what he did in the original timeline. Have more confidence, and just be more prepared for every single thing that may get thrown their way. And yes, the Viltrumite Empire could respond to this, because Nolan abandoning his mission would definitely put the Viltrumites on alert. But it doesn't mean they can't be prepared for an eventual strike. That's why I kind of believe that there's a small chance that we actually get Nolan or Omni-Man actually deciding to set up a trap elsewhere outside of Earth. But let's just say Earth is the target and he does decide to stay. They might be able to prepare for that eventual arrival of various different Viltrumites and various different kind of people to eventually show up. And this could lead to an actual resistance, maybe more preparation. I mean, with the knowledge of the Empire's workings, Nolan becoming kind of like a key player in this anti-Viltrumite resistance alongside like Alan the Alien and various other heroes, including, by the way, the Guardians of the Globe, because they won't be dead, which is obviously an absolute W that they're not gone. But having all of these various different kind of heroes uniting on Earth, yes, with somebody who potentially put Earth in danger in the first place, but I can see Cecil realizing, like, you know what, this is the only way to kind of approach things at this point. I mean, everything has pointed to the idea that Omni-Man or Nolan is now telling the truth. So there's really no point of kind of putting him on the back burner. And he still gave them every reason to trust him and every reason to kind of truly still have his back, even though he did lie in the first place. Yes, he did lie initially, but now that he came clean and all this other stuff, they feel a lot better on the idea. Like, Cecil might even trust Nolan a lot more, and this would allow for a far stronger alliance, right? Like a completely stronger alliance. And honestly, maybe even Nolan brings up different aspects of Viltrumite biology and kind of like what he believes are weaknesses that they could exploit, or kind of like tells him like, hey, I need you to train my son in this, and this. This is the best way to actually train a Viltrumite. This is how you could potentially train a Viltrumite, because obviously Nolan would know these things, and getting help from Cecil would definitely be beneficial. Now, I will say this, there are aspects of Cecil that when he does, or what he does with, you know, quote unquote bad people, or people that are really not very good, I mean, Nolan would be a lot less kind of against it, different than obviously Mark, or different than Invincible, because Invincible was flat out like, no, you're working with a killer, like that's horrible, blah blah, you need to not do that, right? But Nolan would look at it like, if we can get as much help as possible to prepare for this eventual Viltrumite invasion, we really need all the help we can get. And that is the reality of it. Nolan knows the risks of war. Nolan knows what's coming, right? He knows what eventually will arrive on their doorstep, and preparing for it, preparing for that arrival, standing up to that arrival is the most important thing. So if you got to work with bad people to get the results that you need, he's going to do that. But at the same time, he knows the boundaries. Even Cecil, to an extent, knows the boundaries. He knows that these people need to be kept in check and need to be put in a place where they can be useful, but they can be monitored. And Cecil's pretty good at that, even though he does make that massive mistake that we all know and absolutely love to hate, which is, you know, monitoring, kind of faking the death of Conquest and monitoring him, and, you know, all that nonsense. But of course, we know that with everyone's help combined, there's actually a chance that they can become this resistance that could actually stop or help stop parts of the Viltrumite Empire. Now, I won't say that they'll be super prepared for anything, but we know how Viltrumites roll. They're not going to basically just send their entire fleet of Viltrumites right at the planet of Earth. They're going to send somebody first. They're going to send Anissa, and then they'll probably send some other Viltrumites, or they might send, you know, these Viltrumites or that Viltrumite, and then eventually you would get the arrival of Conquest, and then obviously everything else in between, like the Invincible War and stuff like that. Having Omni-Man around makes it for not only that he's prepared enough to help out, and he's, well, obviously brings a wealth of knowledge to really help out in those regards, but he also helps out, well, Mark become a better hero and a stronger superhero as well before these events even happen. He would genuinely be able to help Mark become even stronger, if that's through kind of like, you know, like learning, through kind of figuring out different techniques, different battle techniques. You got to realize, I mean, Omni-Man is very, very talented in those aspects of fighting, and he'd be able to really show Mark various aspects as well. And then on top of that, with Cecil's help, hone him and hone maybe even himself to get even stronger than what they already are. I mean, there's no guarantees that Omni-Man could really get that much more powerful, but at the same time, you never really know until you really start trying to push the needle, and you might as well push it as far as possible, because at the end of the day, you are preparing for probably the scariest arrival you will ever see of every single Viltrumite you could possibly think of. Yes, is Conquest terrifying? Yes, is Anissa and various other Viltrumites pretty damn scary? Of course they are. But it doesn't mean they'll be the last of Viltrumites to show their face, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy to take down and finish the job involving ending the Viltrumite Empire. And yes, would it be beneficial to everybody if Omni-Man stopped his mission far earlier than usual? Of course, but there's never a guarantee when dealing with powerful beings like this, and you never know. Maybe, just maybe, things don't go their way, and the Viltrumites decide to clean up their little mess because they decide that Omni-Man's, well, he's worth sending far more Viltrumites than they ever have before, maybe even sending multiple Viltrumites accompanying the one and only Conquest as well. But of course, that's all hypothetical. Everything we're talking about is obviously hypothetical on the idea of what if Omni-Man stopped his mission earlier on or earlier in the story. Now, with that said, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about the idea, about what you believe would happen if Omni-Man did stop his mission earlier on. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Please leave a like and leave a sub and leave a comment down below, all that good stuff as well. And yeah, that's really all I got to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did enjoy this video, YouTube believes you'll enjoy this one. So might as well go check it out.